All right, welcome to today's daily vlog, first one of the week, and what I want to start the week off is actually just going off a tweet that I saw by Fergus Connolly, something from his book, The 59 Lessons that he's learned, a book that I'm like trying to, that's a nice book I really want to get into when it gets into the leadership side of things and, you know, just how to get things done. And the quote was, you know, everybody trains for the 2 hours, but it's about what you do in the other 22 that matter. And, you know, that kind of puts things into perspective for, you know, me as a coach and me as, you know, somebody who's trying to, you know, start this company and promote the best development possible for the athletes and, you know, getting coaches to buy into, you know, my philosophy, my ideals and what I've seen work and, you know, things I haven't seen work and trying things in new ways to them and, you know, just taking a different approach that I think will get the best development. But part of that has to be the influence on what happens outside of the contact that we have with these kids or these athletes or whatever it is, because at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of sleep studies coming out, or, you know, like more people like emphasizing how important sleep is. And, you know, just with adding 2 hours of sleep to your training, performance goes up. You know, if you add an average of 2 hours of sleep a night, your performance will go up, your risk of injury goes down. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, with the world we live in, you know, if we can influence these kids to understand that, hey, like, you know, you getting extra sleep will make you better. Like, you know what I mean? That alone will make a difference. If, you know, people continue to do everything they were doing and then just influence the sleep side of things, everyone would automatically already elevate to the next level. That's not saying you're going to, you know, everybody's going to win a championship or everybody's going to PR, everybody's going to do that. But your performance will ultimately get better just off that. So our role in, you know, developing athletes, like there has to be something in that process that targets what these athletes are doing outside of the time that we spend with them. You know, developing habits and lifestyles for hydration, nutrition, and sleep. I mean, those three things are really just the biggest keys to recovery anyway. And, you know, there's all these recovery tools like, you know, rollers and lacrosse balls and, you know, the ray gun or whatever it's called. And while those tools are very useful and if you can afford them, like have them, at the end of the day, you know, that's not going to make up for 5 hours of sleep. That's not going to make up for not getting enough protein. That's not going to make up for not hydrating enough for weeks on end. Before you get any of those things, we have to target the three. We have to target those three things. We're getting more sleep, eating the right things, getting enough protein especially, and also getting enough carbs prior to workouts and right after workouts for, you know, glycogen recovery, glycogen storage recovery, and then, you know, the hydration. And the sleep. Like those three things alone, I think if those aren't addressed first, like in your recovery plan, well, then it doesn't really matter, like, you know, how much stretching you do or, you know, how much, you know, mobility work you do. Like if you're not addressing those first, you've already missed out on the biggest impact of recovery. That's the top 10%. You know, that's the things that, you know, give you that even just a little extra edge, like, you know. But that's not the full answer, and, you know, addressing again those things first is key, and that comes from, you know, educating your athletes, right? Like educating them about, hey, like this is what your eating should look like. You know what I mean? This is why your sleep is so important. You know, and I think the way that, you know, your training model or philosophy or however you get things done, like is. Comes into fruition, or however you want to say it, like whatever that is for you, like if your kids aren't bought into that, they're not going to buy into everything else. So for example, one of the reasons that I like, you know, doing Tony Holler's method with, you know, speed training and having the timers out and, you know, emphasizing that max velocity sprint, like you need to PR your sprint. The reason I love doing that is because I think it actually gives athletes incentive to recover better, because after, you know, couple weeks where they're trying to get their times better and they might not see improvement, well, once we start to dive a little deeper into the root of the problem, they'll see and start to understand that, listen, if you want this time to get better, like you're doing all the training, you're here for all the training, I see you work hard, you're doing what I tell you, right? But what are you doing outside? Well, you know, I was up late last night playing video games. Well, why don't you try cutting that out? Or, oh man, like, you know, I like, you know, went out and like I had, you know, like 4 packs of Oreos or whatever it may be, right? Like that, when you start to talk about to the athlete and say, hey, like, well, I mean, that had a difference. That influenced you here. You weren't properly prepared. Now you actually start to, your training can actually like give incentive to like, hey man, like you got to get this thing going, or your workout's not as good, or somebody that you're in heavy competition with is outdoing you. Well, what did they do? They got more sleep. They ate better. They took their protein at night. Like, you know what I mean? They've been hydrating the right amount for days, like for weeks, for months, you know, and those things start to add up over time. So the training model can actually influence what's happening in those 22 hours. But at the end of the day, whatever your training is and however it's done, however you conduct yourself, or however the program works itself out, you have to address those aspects of recovery. That is recovery. Sleep, hydration, nutrition. If you can get those 3 things handled, guarantee you'll see results, right? And then you can start to dive deeper into the problems of, okay, like, are we regulating fatigue? Is this movement too much? Do we need to reel back this? And you can actually have more of a sound insight to, this is a determining factor. Like, is it the fact that we're doing 4 sprints, you know, at max speed? Is that something that is hurting us, or is like we're doing too much on the lifting? Well, if you're not even recovering anyway, well, you should probably back off in the first place. But 2, like, you're not getting a legitimate answer about what's going on. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Like, you know, if you have, like, basically, if you want to get better recovery, the first 3 things you need to address are sleep, hydration, and nutrition. If you can address those 3 things first, guarantee you'll see some sort of results. Have a good night.